Digimon Seekers, Chapter 4, Part 10. He's after the source code, which he'll get once he's decrypted the data from all 3 sectors, Eiji said over the private chat he opened with Lugumon. Doraemon's data sector was already complete. Ryudamon's vaccine sector decryption was paused for the moment. He's also trying to override me and re-engage the restraints, Lugumon huffed. And we can't just attack him directly. He's only a video projection. But then, how does he plan to hurt us? He's got pawns, entities he can control to... What the? Lugumon yelped. Metal cannon! Doraemon attacked without warning. Eiji covered his head and fell to the ground. Lugumon dodged, the metal projectile missing them by a hair's breadth. The hell do you think you're doing? Yeah, what the hell, Kosuke? Eiji barked. Kosuke was still in a daze over the news of Saya's death, but he turned his head toward the commotion. What? What are you doing, Doraemon? Kosuke mumbled, his face contorting in confusion. A bad sign. A loud thunk shook the source domain. Is someone else controlling you? Doraemon didn't respond. Its eyes were vacant. Professor, Eiji protested. You're controlling them, aren't you, Ryusenji? Lugumon snarled, eyes fixed on the professor's video image. One needn't be linked to a Digimon to control them. You code crackers do it all the time. All you need is the right suite of tools. No, Yulin yelled, shaking her head. It's one thing to restrain Doraemon while Kosuke's mind-linked, but engaging external control, that shouldn't be possible. But it is, precisely because they're mind-linked, the professor said with a smile. The presence of Kosuke's consciousness in Doraemon's Digicore is a gigantic backdoor. This is because of me? Kosuke wondered, looking down at his hands. His Digimon linker was sending 2 different signals. One, obviously, wasn't his. Tartarus, the legendary code cracker, was powerless. How weak are the broken-hearted, Professor Ryusenji said in his classic, overly dramatic way. Yulin and Eiji tried to get Kosuke's attention. He heard none of their plaintive screams, their sympathetic appeals, their fury. He sank further inward. No words could heal his broken heart. Doraemon, too, was powerless to resist and succumb to the professor. They were nothing more than a puppet now. Digivolve, the professor bellowed. Again? Eiji yelped, recoiling in shock. Digivolve to champion, then your ultimate level Doru Greymon form, and then to your mega level Dorugoramon form. With a mighty roar, Doraemon digivolved once more into Dorugoramon. Its cold, lifeless eyes stared back at the humans and other Digimon. What a lovely tableau of despair, Professor Ryusenji trumpeted, standing beside the silver dragon he'd unleashed. So we're gonna have to fight Dorugoramon? Eiji asked Lugumon. Now then, Eiji, you make quick decisions. So which will it be? Help me decrypt the data that will lead me to the source Digimon, and all is forgiven. That's all I want. You'll be my pupil, both at DDL and the university, the professor offered. A bargain with the devil. Tokyo Electric. Just think of it. A cushy apartment in the Denrin district. All-you-can-eat privileges at the DDL cafe. Full employee benefits. Perhaps you'll meet a lovely lady among the other employees. Assuming things don't work out between you and Hatsune, that is. What? Eiji was overwhelmed. You have 10 seconds. I look forward to your response, the professor said, and began counting down. 10. 9. 8. Eiji recalled the B he got on his mock university entrance exam. If he could skip the exam altogether and get into the university, he'd eventually be able to work his way up to working at a high-profile company like Abaddon Electronics. With some luck, he could become a manager or a director or even start his own business. He began to dream about the multitude of futures opening up before him. He would finally be a winner. No more hourly jobs. Stability enough to plan ahead 10, maybe even 20 years. He'd be set for life. Everything would break his way for far longer than he ever imagined. As it stood, he had no freedom, seeing as he didn't have an official job or any training. He certainly didn't have money or power and no trust in society. He had nothing but time, shot through with the anxiety of instability. That would be nice. Mocha has a boyfriend already, but other than that... You can't be serious, Eiji, Lugumon barked. Their head whipped around to face Eiji, who simply put his hand on their forehead and held them at bay. Listen, Lugumon, he went on, petting the interface on Lugumon's forehead. I've always wanted to find a way into the winner's circle. I want the flashy lifestyle. I got a taste of it the first time I went to DDL. I finally felt like an adult with a real job. That was the dream, and I mean, it brought us together. Sure, but... Lugumon said, giving Eiji the benefit of the doubt. I knew you'd understand. I'll personally guarantee your salary. Now, Professor Ryusenji cut in, raising his arms in welcome. Then again, Eiji shrugged. I'm not the type to make decisions based on simple lists of pros and cons, am I? Besides, it's like the professor said, the digital world can change lives. So it was for Kosuke Kisakata, Shu Yulin, and Leon Alexander, whose lives were ruined by their encounters with the professor's forays into the digital world, to say nothing of Saya Ryusenji's death, which was now just a bargaining chip to her own father. Eiji wasn't about to endorse that behavior. Eiji had seen firsthand how the digital world brought people together around their adventures in a new world. It was a place that should change people's lives for the better. It could give life meaning. It could make time invaluable. It let people live their lives, and it was impossible to put a price on that. I came here in search of a way to emerge victorious in the digital world. I wanted to change my life, and I'm going to find a way to leave my mark on this place. Because at the end of the day, I'm still a code cracker, through and through. He'd raise his sails to the networked winds and keep looking for a way to put his stamp on the digital world, with Lugumon there at his side. They'd save their friends and press onward together. What more could he want from life? You've got to forge your own path, and Eiji knew just how he was going to do it. He struck a defiant pose, one he thought was sure to rub Professor Ryusenji the wrong way. The professor pursed his lips in disappointment. That's why I stick with you, Eiji. There might be some bumps along the road, but we know what has to be done. You've said it yourself, Lugumon said, raising their front legs up to give Eiji a little push on the butt. Bumps along the road? Eiji, haven't I given you my highest marks? The professor wheedled. Why are you still talking, old man? Lugumon barked. Like I said, I respected you as a mentor, Eiji said, trying to keep his voice calm. I wanted to be a major figure in the digital world, just like you. Professor Ryusenji stood in silence, unsure of what to say. This lowly code cracker, who had nothing and would amount to nothing, was sticking to his pretentious ideals. But now I see I was wrong to put you on that pedestal. I shouldn't aim to be like you. In other words, Eiji hesitated. You make us sick. Get out of our way. Lugumon cut in before Eiji could choose his words. The professor remained silent for a moment. His warm, performative smile was gone, replaced by a displeasure he could no longer hide. Biting the hand that feeds, I see. Why do you continue to pick the losing side in this fight? I know I'm giving up a lot. The university, meals in the cafe, all of it out the window, but I do what I do for the people who believe in me. The rest will work itself out. He thought of Leon, who tried to help Eiji as best he knew how. This is your last chance. I presume your answer won't change? Professor Ryusenji said as he sent a command to Dorugoramon. The Digimon targeted Lugumon. We only get one life. I can't help but come to my friend's aid even when they've lost all hope. Codecracker freedom may not be perfect, but it's still freedom. Showtime, Eiji, Lugumon barked. Lugumon, digivolve, Eiji said, cutting his hololization and returning to the Digicore. Lugumon quickly digivolved all the way to their ultimate level form, Solugarmon. Hellfire poured out of the generators on Solugarmon's shoulders, which emitted a low rumble as they exhausted the tremendous heat within. This form had complete control over the demonic wolf within, and a few parts of its armor plating were now covered in ancient code that burned bright as a star in the night sky. It had the ability to convert the massive amounts of hellfire energy within to boost its attack, defense, or posture at a moment's notice. Prominence laser. A beam of hellfire, the temperature of the sun, shot out of Solugarmon's fingers, compounded by electromagnetic forces to form a plasma several thousand degrees Kelvin in temperature. What was once a flamethrower from Lugumon's champion form was now a beam with far more range that could incinerate whatever it touched with inextinguishable flames. The beam connected, causing a hissing sound like meat touching a hot cast iron pan. What the? Solugarmon cried out in shock. Dorugoramon stood its ground. It caught the prominence laser in its bare hands, flesh sizzling as it closed its fists and extinguished the inextinguishable. Wow, very impressive, Professor Ryusenji said excitedly. That was just a greeting, Solugarmon said in return. We barely saw any of the fight with Oryamon, Eiji said timidly, recalling their late arrival to the fighting at the gateway and subsequent battle with Satsuki's cadre of Digipolice troops. Now he'd have to reckon with the awesome power of Tartarus's partner Digimon on his own. Dorugoramon has a shockwave attack, Dorudin, and a charge attack, Brave Metal. That sounds simple, but those attacks make it effective at long and close range. There are no obvious openings to take advantage of in either attack. You sure you want to help us, squad leader? AG asked, turning to look at Yulin. Aryumon's armor made it possible to withstand a few hits and strike back, but in your ultimate form, a single hit is likely to fry your digicore. No way, Sologarmin countered. Excuse you? They're taking commands from software tools. They won't be anywhere near as powerful as when you two fought, Sologarmin said. I'm with squad leader, though, AG said. Tools or not, Professor Ryusenji's on the other end of that terminal, and Yulin's seen way more of what Dorogoramon can do than we have. Sologarmin swung its wrench-like mace Vanargan through the air, struck a pose, and slammed its base into the ground. Fear will only hold us back. I can't argue with that. Time to steel ourselves for the fight ahead, AG said, firing himself up. Let's fight like the scrappy underdogs we are. You, Old Man Tartarus, and AG aren't heroes or gods. You're human, Sologarmin said, pointing Vanargand at the professor's projection. If you're trying to buy time with another one of your speeches, and I'll grant that you're good at it, you'd better think again, the professor said sternly. You can't run out the clock on me. I'm simply controlling Dorogoramon with tools. Kosuke, on the other hand, he might well go DMIA. AG's heart skipped a beat. Kosuke and Dorogoramon's limits aren't the same as yours either. They've been at this a long time, and he's a legendary codecracker, the professor sneered. AG couldn't possibly tell how much time was left without some sort of connection to Dorogoramon, which meant waiting things out was off the table. Even with half its power, Dorogoramon would still be a formidable foe. Let's take things to the next level, shall we? Professor Ryusenji said as Dorogoramon absorbed his video projection. He's adjusting his viewpoint. Does he think he can get close to mind-linked performance? AG wondered, poring over the data lighting up his virtual monitor. Dorudin! A shockwave roared across the source domain's vast expanse. Sologarmin howled, set their shoulder generators to thrust, and flew into the air where they'd have better range of movement. Fast and unpredictable, Sologarmin has mega-level maneuverability, but why would they, Yulin said, cutting herself off as it dawned on her. Sologarmin wanted to take this fight to the air, forcing Dorogoramon to attack from a distance so they could time the Digimon's attacks. But to Yulin, that was a fool's errand. There wouldn't be any time. Several stray bullets hit the Dorudin's shockwave and broke it up in the air. Sologarmin glanced in Yulin's direction. Committed to helping us, huh? They said wryly. Yulin scoffed. Sologarmin looked further down below at Kosuke, still a drained husk of a man, at the immobile Ryudamon, at the black Agumon and Pulseman that had been teleported into the stone circle. Professor Ryusenji remained laser-focused on AG's plan to lure him into the air. He readied another blast from Dorogoramon's Dorudin, this time aimed not at AG or Sologarmon, but the stone circle itself. Yulin swallowed hard. He couldn't possibly risk crushing Ryudamon. That would make decryption impossible. Killing Kosuke would sever the mind link upon which he relied. That left Pulsemon and the Black Agumon. The old man was cunning. She'd give him that. You're gonna use Leon's Pulsemon as a bargaining chip now? You're disgusting. Bluff or no bluff, AG was out of time. Skull Rage! Sologarmin left trails of hellfire in their wake as they shot toward Dorogoramon and flung Vanargand out ahead for a quick strike. It's funny, Professor Ryusenji said, how easy it is to control humans, even without software tools. The Dorudin shot was a bluff after all. Sologarmin's speed no longer mattered. Professor Ryusenji canceled his attack and flung Dorogoramon's arm out to deliver a powerful backhanded strike that smashed into Vanargand and Sologarmon in one clean motion. AG felt the shock within the Digicore but didn't force Sologarmin to recover quickly enough for a counterattack. It was better to be knocked back than suffer any more damage in the moment. Now we're getting somewhere. Dorogoramon is quite fearsome, even with software tools. If only I weren't stuck using just half its power, Professor Ryusenji said, nevertheless quite pleased with himself. So grating, he's in far too good a mood, Sologarmin growled. Let's try this, AG said, inputting a command. Sologarmin loosed another round of the Prominence laser, which Dorogoramon deflected with one arm. Sologarmin launched another and another and another. Unable to fully contain each shot, Dorogoramon slowly became engulfed in flames. The beams lacked the piercing ability of a truly calibrated shot, however, meaning the flames never quite caught and were thus quickly extinguished. Smoke billowed off Dorogoramon's body. It was a nice try, but you'll have to be more imaginative than that. Professor Ryusenji sneered, paying it no mind. The software tools gave him no sense of Dorogoramon's pain. That was a privilege reserved for Kosuke, who remained mind-linked. "Well, I've certainly had enough for now. I'm quite busy," he said. "That's a lie. Research is all you have time for," Eiji challenged. "Worry not, Eiji. You're absolutely correct about that, which is why I have to get back to work. Lucky for you, I can't afford to destroy your Digicore if I want to finish decrypting the source domain's data. Tell me, have you ever peered into hell?" "Ah, right. You lost your parents in that awful plane crash. Surely that gave you a glimpse." Eiji spluttered, the words catching in his throat. "How do you feel about theme park rides? Would you like to experience the same fear and pain your parents felt? Perhaps you wouldn't feel so comfortable defying me if you did. I'll break you yet." Eiji couldn't square this side of the professor with the one he knew in his mind, the preeminent digital world researcher, a man worthy of Eiji's respect, the man who placed protection of the digital world and the Digimon within above all else. That outlook profoundly moved Eiji once upon a time, as did the ethos that any involvement with the digital world necessarily involved meddling in the lives of Digimon. Those were the thoughts of a man with reverence for the digital world, a love of the digital world that curdled into greed. Greed, the familiar motivator that instantly removes compassion from the equation. Suddenly, it didn't seem to matter how many people the professor hurt. He hadn't killed anyone, but he chewed them up and spat them out, leaving them a shell of their former selves. It wasn't all that different in the end, yet he could still sleep at night and carry on ruining more lives the next day. He was a very human monster from the real world, and now he was loose in the digital world. Eiji wasn't about to be its next victim, but he also wasn't sure if he should try to cut a deal or flee. Neither option was appealing, but the alternatives were worse. "Ryusenji, you monster! I'm sick of this game of tag. It's a waste of time, especially considering I've got Pulsemon trapped in, eh?" Professor Ryusenji cut himself short. Pulsemon was gone. The smoke surrounding Dorogoramon slowly lifted, revealing an empty space where Yulin, Ryudamon, and the Black Agumon stood within the stone circle. Only Kosuke remained at the altar, and he wasn't alone. "A Tyrannomon? Where did you come from?" the professor asked, simultaneously befuddled and disappointed. The creature stood next to Kosuke looking concerned. Kosuke didn't move a muscle. "What are you doing, Kosuke? Come on," Eiji whispered. I see what you've done, Eiji. Using your little Tyrannomon under cover of smoke. Very cute," the professor griped. The Prominence laser blasts created just enough smoke to allow the Tyrannomon from Eiji's Digimon dock to move the others to safety. But where had they taken them, Professor Ryusenji wondered. There was nowhere to hide in the source domain. The altar. Of course. How else could it get so high up off the ground? A network of pillars and blocks below suspended the altar and the stone circle surrounding it above the ground. That left plenty of space underneath the structure in which to hide. But now there was no escape, not so long as Dorogoramon was under his control and Ryudamon was still restrained. "Tyrannomon! Old man Tartarus is fine where he is," Solugamon barked. Pulsemon was the main point of concern, and they were safe. "Tyrannomon? One? Is that you? Hide. Quick." The words had scarcely left Eiji's lips when he heard a wet thud, followed by the Tyrannomon's pained roar. Static and noise poured from a wound in the Tyrannomon's shoulder. He never even saw the shot rip through the air. "How unsightly. This is no place for such weak Digimon," the professor said, breaking Dorogoramon out of its Doru-din stance. It had honed its shockwave to a fine point, mimicking a bullet. "Tyrannomon!" Eiji cried out. Dorogoramon can be as precise as it is powerful. That Tyrannomon could be turned to dust if I so chose. The Tyrannomon dropped to the ground, trembling, too terrified to move. It wouldn't be able to withstand another hit from the mega-level hunter. In fact, perhaps I will. Only this time, I'll send the entire hive instead of one little bee. Dorogoramon launched a salvo of focused shockwaves at the small Digimon. It was quite surprised to find itself unharmed when it opened its eyes after the barrage subsided. It saw fire the color of the sun and felt Solugarmon's arm wrapped tightly around it. "Ah!" Solugarmon roared, grabbing at the arm that had taken the brunt of the attack. "I confess I don't know what you were thinking, Eiji," the professor said, aghast. "Throwing away your partner Digimon's arm for a piddly Tyrannomon you could easily replace? Preposterous." Dorogoramon remained still as Professor Ryusenji struggled to make sense of Eiji's strategy. Solugarmon's left arm hung limp at their side. Even with the rapid-fire attack diminishing the power of each individual shot, one hit from the Dorudin was all it took to wreck Solugarmon's arm. "You saved my Tyrannomon," Ag said softly. "You leave my packmates out of this," Solugarmon bellowed. It was all instinct. Solugarmon was the boss of the 9th District, after all. The threat activated the wolf-like data at the heart of their digicore that compelled them to protect the members of their pack at all costs. "You asked if we've ever peered into hell?" Ag said, returning his focus to the battle ahead. "We'll show you what hell looks like, Ryusenji," Solugarmon howled. Ag and Solugarmon were synced and ready to digivolve one last time. They'd finally found true strength, and they were going to use it to protect those closest to them. A bright light enveloped Solugarmon, and a new Digimon emerged in their place. Fenry Lugumon, Mega, Dark Beast, Virus. End of Chapter 4, Part 10.